for some analysis. This summit's being framed as peace and security in the Middle East, but for the U.S. at least, it looks to be all about Iran.
That's right. While the U.S. is trying to frame it as a peace and security conference, it's totally understood that this is really a conference about isolating Iran, bringing in both regional allies as well as EU allies, and trying to marginalize Iran. This is, of course, in the context of the U.S. pulling out of the nuclear agreement with Iran last year, which Germany, France, the UK, and the EU more broadly has a strong interest in preserving. That was an agreement that came through after months and months of negotiation, trying to get through benefits that would be economic, security-based, and politically based, and the EU doesn't want to see that fail the same way that the U.S. does.
Now, the U.S. key regional and EU allies are attending in part. It is interesting to note, however, who's not attending this conference. Most EU states, aside from the U.K., are sending lower-level representatives. Regionally, Lebanon, for example, boycotted the summit, as well as the Palestinians. What does that say about Trump's policy in Iran and his foreign policy in general?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the response to this summit has shown that other states do not want to be strong-armed into the U.S. agenda, the U.S. Attempt to marginalize Iran in this way. There's a nod to what the U.S. is trying to do here, but as you noted, not sending top-level representatives, certain states just boycotting the summit outright, not wanting to show any kind of outright support for this. If anything, just giving a tacit nod to being part of the conversation, but not wanting to commit any kind of high-profile commitment to what the U.S. wants to do.
Now, the U.S. wants the countries to fully nullify the Iran nuclear deal. What is the European Union doing to preserve the nuclear deal as much as it can?
Yeah, well, this is what's been interesting. The EU has already been trying to find ways to get around the pressures from Washington. Even before the summit, the U.S. has been using a lot of economic measures to try and pressure companies as well as states to not do business with Iran. Last week, though, the EU was able to pass a certain kind of channel that would allow for initial kinds of trade to continue with Iran around the limitations that the U.S. has put in already. It'll start with mostly what's framed as humanitarian goods, so things that are classified as either pharmaceutical, medical, or food kinds of products. But the EU is hoping that it'll be a channel that can be broadened rather than narrowed in the future to be able to get around some of the barriers that Washington is trying to impose.
Julie, thank you for that.